Let's talk about Crow Country, the new survival horror title from SFB Games. I am going to try my best not to spoil anything in this review, and I'm just going to get this out of the way. Crow Country is a throwback, and in the best way. The visuals are retro, but the controls are modern, which is great. I don't think I would have enjoyed this game with fixed camera angles and tank controls. I understand that there are a number of survival horror enthusiasts who would love that, but for Crow Country, being able to control the camera is a big plus because there's this emphasis on exploration. Combat in this game is simple and serviceable. You aim and you shoot, and that is it. You are stationary once you draw your weapon, and then you're able to freely aim at the enemy. As this is a survival horror title, ammo is scarce, and it's actually recommended to shoot explosives or utilize environmental obstacles to clear enemies quickly. Enemies in this game can be fairly spongy, but they are easily dodged. You do not have to go in the mindset that every room needs to be cleared. I would say the biggest threat to you are the larger enemies, and these are probably the ones that you should prioritize. There are 4 weapons in all, and outside of the pistol, these other weapons are pretty well hidden and require you to be attentive when exploring because you can easily miss some of these if you happen to rush. I know I did. For some reason, I just couldn't find the flamethrower, and I'm pretty sure that as I was making my way through the game, I was like, I'm missing something. But combat in this game is relatively secondary. We'll get to that in a bit. You can also utilize grenades in this game, but I found myself using those sparingly. Enemies can move out of the blast radius pretty quickly, so you have to anticipate where they will be because it does take some time for those grenades to cook. Overall, the combat is solid, but it is only one piece of the Crow Country pie, and I would say it's a fairly small part. What makes up the whole of this game is exploration. And the exploration in this game is fantastic. In fact, this might be one of the best survival horror titles in regard to level design. There are so many hidden secrets and shortcuts for you to find that when you start getting your pathing down, you're going to be surprised about how quickly you are navigating through these different areas. It is a lot of fun, and the game does a good job of enticing you to explore. So they accomplish this by placing notes all over the place, and these are going to hint at the next location, and they're also going to provide information about how to solve each puzzle. There's not a single puzzle in this game that is difficult. Some are going to be intricate, some are going to be fairly in-depth, but they're all fun, they're all solvable, and what's great is that they're going to take you to practically every location in the game. Some of these puzzles are even going to grant you an audience with a mini mushroom, and these little guys will upgrade your weapons and medkits, and they're also going to talk shit to you and make decisions on your behalf, which is just hilarious. A number of these puzzles you'll notice when you're playing through this game are going to lead you to a new shortcut. And one of the most important things about Crow Country that I really want to talk about is just how optimized pathing can be. And they do this so that the game doesn't get tedious. Backtracking in survival horror games can be fairly frustrating at times because you are constantly going back and forth to the same location. Here in Crow Country, there are so many different ways to arrive at a destination that I really never found myself getting lost or frustrated, and that is a testament to good level design. It's one of my favorite things about this game. I think what's great is that you're going to arrive in some of these areas in which you are looking for a specific item, and when you're in these rooms, you'll see paintings and drawings or notes that are kind of out of place, and these are really going to hint at secrets in this room. And it's really up to you as to whether or not you want to engage in these side puzzles. I was hooked in just solving the mystery for Crow Country at first, so I tried to keep my exploration as minimal as possible. I was really trying to keep this as a linear experience, but the moment that my curiosity was starting to be rewarded, I started to slow down and take my time. I highly recommend that you slow down at parts because there's a lot to uncover here, and I think you'll be pleasantly surprised when you do. With how simple this game is, I didn't think that upgrading would be even in consideration because combat is just aiming and shooting, but I was wrong, and I appreciate the attention to detail that the developers have here. Being rewarded for taking your time is incredibly satisfying, and I'm glad that even with the retro aesthetic, it did not prevent the developer from crafting detailed environments. The more I played, the more I was impressed by what was here. Every time I entered into a new area, I was kind of shocked by what I was finding if I took my time to kind of go through the entire room. There are just way too many moments where you're going to come up to a scene, see different enemies or like individuals that you'll get to meet, and then you're just kind of walking around, and then there's like something hidden in a corner or a note that's going to lead you to a different area, and then you're going to find out that there's a mini mushroom there, or you're going to find a new weapon, and it's going to be like, holy crap, there's so much here that it's kind of shocking that the developer took their time out to make it this entertaining. I'm just thoroughly impressed by the level design, and I really feel like it's the main draw to Crow Country. So before we end the video, I want to talk about Crow Country's narrative. Overall, it's solid. It doesn't take itself too seriously, and I'm going to try to avoid a lot of spoilers here. I'm kind of give a snapshot about everything that's happening, but basically the way this game works is that you have a small bit of dialogue at the very beginning, and then you're just kind of thrown in to this abandoned amusement park, and then your main character, Mara, is just expected to figure things out. And I think Mara as a character is really great overall because she's very capable, very astute, is constantly trying to figure things out. But what's really funny is that she's also self-deprecating and can make a number of humorous statements in moments that are really serious. This game has a great sense of humor, and there are so many objects that you can interact with. You're going to be really surprised, and I keep mentioning this, but the level of detail here is pretty jarring. So if you happen to go into a room and there's something you can interact with, go ahead and do it, because listening or reading what Mara says is really hilarious at times. And I think it's kind of unintentional, but she kind of takes shots at herself while also taking shots at what's happening here. What's great is that she is not alone in her journey, and you're going to find a number of people you can interact with, and the conversations can range from serious to darkly humorous. There are a number of running gags with certain characters that I love because what's happening here in Crow Country at this amusement park is clearly serious. There are monsters chasing you, people are dying, and these characters are well aware of the peril they find themselves in, but they can act really nonchalant about the things that are happening, and they seem unbothered at times. And it can be really funny when you're seeing a character just like, yeah, I got pulled into this room and then shoved into a box, but how are things going with you? Like that type of stuff happens all the time, and I think it's fantastic. I think the humor is handled well in this game, and overall, I just think it elevates the writing because the game never tries to have the humor interfere with the serious moments. There's never really any cheap shock value. There's never any cheap moments. I really feel like the conversations are fun. I really feel like everything's kind of tongue-in-cheek. But when it starts to get down to business, the game knows when to kind of shut off the humor and have that conversation. And I think that Crow Country is really good in that regard, because I don't think if this game got far too serious and kind of went Silent Hill, it would have not have worked. I think the fact that it's more Resident Evil, more tongue-in-cheek, more B-movie type, that it really fits this game. Because there are so many moments where I really felt like when you kind of get to this point of like exploration and things start to get really dark and kind of grimy, that the game was going to turn and it was going to be one of these self-serious titles like Signalis. Now, I'm not trying to knock Signalis. I love that game. But here in Crow Country, there's really no deep meaning to it. There's nothing for you to really infer. It's just cut and dry, and it's a lot of fun. I think that it really helps the narrative that the game doesn't try to reach into territories that it has no business trying to reach into. And I like the fact that developers tried to make this game funny and serious and never tried to like overly blend the two, so it just doesn't feel like it meshes well. But here, I think the game has that perfect balance. The thing about Crow Country is that it's just a solid title all around. I just don't think there are any major flaws. To me, I was kind of looking for something to, complain about, but I just couldn't find it here. My only gripe, honestly, is when you exit a room, the camera is going to be facing Mara, which is weird because I'd rather have you exit the room and show what's ahead of you. Now, you can rectify this pretty easily by just aiming, and you're going to immediately snap to where you're looking. But beyond that, I found this game to be a great experience and a genuine surprise. I've always felt that indie survival horror titles can be hit or miss, and sometimes the emphasis on a retro aesthetic can unintentionally hamper gameplay because you either love tank controls and fixed camera angles or you don't. And sometimes I feel like there are certain indie survival horror titles that suffer from poor writing and generic level design. There's just moments where like a game hits, and then there's also like this part where it's like that just doesn't make any sense. Why is this here? You're just kind of having it here because you saw someone else did it, right? Like if there's a lot of borrowing in survival horror, and a lot of indie titles can feel hit or miss in that regard. But that's not the case here at Crow Country. This game knows exactly what it is, and to me, it's one of the better indie survival horror experiences, mostly in part because of its level design and emphasis on exploration. The game will constantly throw you curveballs as you get comfortable with pathing, whether it's mines on the floor, new enemies, or some other threat. The game doesn't just let you backtrack into an area, it will keep you on your toes, and if you don't pay attention, you might end up dying. I will say this though, I don't think that this game is difficult in the slightest, but that's okay. Not every game needs to be controller breaking difficult. Crow Country is an easier survival horror title, and you're going to notice that immediately when you start running past enemies and noticing that even though there are a number of them in that area, they're more than likely not a threat. Sure, you might run into the occasional mini boss or larger enemy, but if you actually play this game as intended and use the environment, which is noted in every room by the way, you're going to breeze right through this. This is a satisfying game, and if you happen to pick it up, take your time. And if you don't want to engage in combat and all you want to do is explore, then select exploration mode, and this will allow you to freely dive into the environments and solve the different puzzles that make up this game. Regardless of how you play, I'm fairly certain that you'll enjoy Crow Country and be pleasantly surprised. If you are a survival horror enthusiast, I think this is a must play. Now, this game is short. It's probably going to run you maybe 46 hours your first time, but listen, this game has solid replay value because there are unlockables, and I highly recommend you pick this game up. And that is going to do it for this video. If you happen to like the content, hit that like button and think about subscribing. I'm Ken from Pixelated Thoughts, and I'll talk to you next time.